Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Malzin with Engage Bay. Today, we're very excited to continue our interview series where we sit down with influential names in sales and marketing. For this episode, our guest is none other than Douglas Karr. Douglas is an incredibly renowned authority in all things marketing tech, or MarkTech. He works with a select group of clients to help them scale their businesses to the next level. Douglas also specializes in assisting marketing technology companies with their inbound marketing activities, such as leveraging social media, search engine optimization, blogging, pay-per-click, and public relations. Douglas has been recognized by LinkedIn and their sophisticated marketing guide as a top marketer. So here's Douglas. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Excited to be here.
Great. Okay, so let's get started with the first question. You've been doing digital marketing for over a decade, including print media and direct marketing. What made you decide to get into the field?
Well, I'm getting old. I think it's coming up on like 17 years now of all things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I was in the United States Navy and I was an industrial electrician. And that might sound very strange to people, that how did I get to where I am now? But back in those days, we didn't have an IT group. We had electricians that basically wired everything up. And so I left the Navy and joined a newspaper, which basically kicked off my entire marketing career. So I worked at the newspaper, started wiring up computers, then started developing. And then about that time was when database marketing really started to take off within that industry for measuring retention and acquisition and starting to do demographic analysis. And so I was blessed. I was really just blessed to be on the front end of a company. Landmark Communications was the company that they invested heavily in the internet very early on. They were one of the few newspapers to really kind of see what was going to happen next. And then I went to work for a consulting agency out in Denver, where we helped build a SaaS system for newspapers to be able to do their marketing. And then the dot-bomb crash, you might have heard about that, happened. Yeah. And I went back to a newspaper and took over as their database marketing manager. And the whole time, I was kind of screaming at the newspaper to get into digital and to start a newsletter and everything else. And they didn't listen to me. Eventually, they got tired of me whining about it and fired me. And them firing me was the best thing that ever happened. It kicked off my career. I went and worked for ExactTarget early on, the Indianapolis Colts early on, and a bunch of other startups. And then 10 years ago, I basically started my own agency just to help everybody.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah, huh?
So what made you decide to focus on inbound rather than outbound marketing?
I love inbound. I think, don't get me wrong. I think a good company has both sides to the equation. But one of the things that I really love is just understanding human behavior. And so I said before that, I got into demographic analysis and retention and acquisition analysis. And a lot of that was trying to figure out what customers or prospects were looking for and what they needed. And so if you wrote, let's say, a direct mail piece, it would cost tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a direct mail piece. You had to be really careful about testing and measuring and researching and everything else before you would kick that off. And so I think it was just a natural progression when I got into content strategies and SEO and digital advertising. It's really the same thing. It's a lot of the same kind of research that we do and identifying what propels people to make a purchase and what really motivates them to move along the customer funnel. And so it's a blast. I absolutely love it.
That's really great. So I want to talk a little bit about what you've done. I know you've created a lot of smart digital strategies for enterprise clients, and they tend to have pretty big marketing budgets. What would you suggest for startups? How could they get noticed and convert visitors if they only have a limited budget?
I love that because actually quite a few of my clients, I joke about it, I have to talk about the big clients to get, authority out there, but I have a ton of startup clients that I absolutely love. And so what I always tell, obviously starting with a website that really presents your brand well and the benefits that you provide customers. So not necessarily the features, right? But really the benefit of how you work with companies. And then I really encourage small clients to think about a content strategy from a library standpoint. So instead of thinking about what am I going to do this week or what am I going to do today, think about, in the course of the next year, what kind of topics do I really want to broach in order to build trust and authority within my industry, provide research topics to people that are going to make a purchase. And so I pan it down. I said, what if it was 12 articles, one a month? What would those 12 articles be? And then, if you can get those written, now you've got 12 incredible resources for people. Then you can start doing videos for them, and you can start adding graphics to them, and you don't have to keep producing. You can just keep optimizing those over and over and over again until they're the best resource on the internet. And they'll continue to, as you promote them through social channels and within the industry and everything else, they'll continue to propel you upwards. It's a real momentum game. It's not an overnight game.
Okay. It's funny you bring up social media, because that's actually my next question. How would you say a small business should approach social media marketing to stand out from everybody else?
I think social media is one of those things where people are really seeking help. They're not seeking to purchase a product.
Right.
So yeah. I don't go to Facebook to buy something. That doesn't mean I don't buy something, when I'm at Facebook, but that wasn't my intent there. And so what I really talk to people about is on social media, that's your opportunity to kind of bridge a personal connection with them. And so some of the things that people can do is like, hashtag monitoring or monitoring of certain keywords. And so someone might ask out there, I was talking today about a platform that basically wipes out and gives me back space on my hard drive,
Okay.
And so if I was that company, I would basically be listening using a social media monitoring tool or something and listening for people saying, how do I get back space on my hard drive? Right. And then I could say, hey, you know what? Here's 3 things that you can do. I wouldn't tell them to buy my product. I would just tell them, here's 3 things you can do. And then someone's going to go, wow, that was really great advice. Where did that come from? Oh, wow, these guys actually do it for a living. They helped me. I now I feel compelled to kind of work with them. And so social media is a great networking, monitoring, and really a place to build personal relationships with people.
Okay. So what is your view on the best social platform? Like, which one do you think is the best for B2B businesses, and why?
Well, you're asking me, that's a loaded question, because I am a paid ambassador for AgoraPulse, which is an incredible platform, but I'll tell you how it came about, and then I won't sound as cheesy. I was using some common tools that were fairly inexpensive out there to manage, and I was managing about 30 different social media accounts just on my own. And so I have multiple blogs, I have multiple podcasts, I have a veteran side of my equation as a brand, and then my company has a brand, and then I have MarkTech Zone, which is my site. And so I was managing all these things, and it was out of control. I just needed something that basically kind of provided me a task list. And so I tried a ton of different tools, and then I had met the founder of AgoraPulse years ago, and I said, you know what? I wonder how they've progressed. I opened up the application, and I'm not lying, within 10 minutes, I had what they call a social media inbox, which is just like you check email, I check social.
Okay.
And I'm able to publish out of it and everything else. And so I just love their platform, and I think they've done a great job at really making it efficient. And you can, if you were a social media manager and you had multiple people, or you had salespeople or whatever, you can actually defer, tweets and Facebook updates and say, hey, please answer this for this person and pass it along and everything. It's a cool tool. It's really, really good.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about cost per click on social media. We know that the costs keep going up. So if you're a small business, how can you get the maximum value for the ad money you're spending?
Well, that's where I was talking inbound. One of the things that I absolutely love is I love search engine marketing and then social networking. Because if I do the two really well, if I write incredible content, people are going to share that content, and then I don't have to spend as much on advertising, right? If I go to a search engine, I do have some kind of request or research that I'm doing to make a purchase. And so I love organic marketing and content strategies, because what that ultimately does is bring that cost per click. It doesn't bring the cost per click down, but it can really reduce your overall budget that you're paying on advertising and make advertising more of a value add. So what I tell my clients is I really want to continue building momentum with organic strategies, and then over time fluctuate the advertising. And so maybe we have a something that ranks fantastic. We're getting a ton of leads in it. Everything's going good, and we can slow down on the money that we're spending on advertising. And then at other times, maybe it's slow. Maybe search growth is down, or it's seasonal or whatever. And now we can spend more money on advertising. And so those are the kinds of things. The second thing is, if you're just doing advertising, I am absolutely amazed at how many customers don't do any testing. And,
okay.
And testing is one of those things that literally just trying two versions of the same ad, two different headlines can make a day and night difference. And unfortunately, we're so busy nowadays that we don't often do that. There's a company I'm out of Indianapolis. There's a company that's really helping there too. They don't pay me, so this is just a free plug, but Pattern 89. And they actually tell you before you run an ad, if you're in this industry, you should probably have a picture of a baby, and you should probably have these words in the title, and you should probably do this because that will propel them up. And then they'll come up with different test versions for you. And so that's a good time saver there too.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful. All right, so moving away from social media, if we're talking about startups and they want to do influencer marketing, what do you think they should start with? What's the first thing they should do?
Oh, that's a red button topic for me again. You got an opinionated guy here. As someone who is called an influencer, I am really hesitant on influencer marketing. And here's why, is because there are some people out there that have massive networks on the internet who are incredible connectors. In other words, they know everybody. I think I'm one of those people. I know a ton of people. If you guys want to meet, investors and partners and other companies and everything else, I can make those connections. That's really valuable, right? You can grow your business significantly that way. But as an influencer, with basically the definition being, hey, I publish content and people do what I say and purchase what I say, that's a lot less likely. And so what I see is a lot of people get into trouble where they hire an influencer, they do a campaign, and it just falls short. And the influencer is happy because they got paid and ran away with the money. And the company is sitting there going, man, this stinks. This influencer marketing doesn't work at all. And so what I try to tell people is, when they do want to work with me, and I have those companies, I mentioned Agorapulse, and there's another company, 250OK, that I work with, another one, Neverbounce. Those are plugs, sorry.
It's all good.
but what I did with them was I did tests, free tests. I said, you know what, let's put an article out there. Let's promote it on social media. Maybe let's do a podcast, and let's see how people respond. If you get some interest from the target audience that you're trying to reach and everything, then let's move down the road to a next step and possibly some type of compensation plan and everything else. Now, some influencer out there are going to scream at me for that and say, we're not doing free work. Well, you know what? I think it's worth it before a company invests a lot of time and energy into an influencer. I think most influencers, if they have faith in their audience and they have faith in their influence, will say, you know what, let's give something a try. And that doesn't mean you don't have a targeted landing page where maybe you get some kind of compensation based off of the number of conversions or something. It just means that I as a company wouldn't sign a contract and spend a ton of money up front. I would basically say, let's do some type of test and let's see how it goes. And with the expectation that the test might have limited results, but if it has a sliver of hope, there's probably a good opportunity for us to grow that relationship and work with them more.
Okay, that's a really interesting take, honestly. So thank you for that. So about content marketing, there's a lot of it. People write blogs all the time about everything. How do we get attention on the blogs, both from Google and from customers?
Yay!
Potential customers, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to that content library discussion I had. Is I really, really push companies to say it's easy nowadays. I mean this. Engage Bay, obviously, you guys do integrated marketing, sales, and services.
Yeah.
And so the great thing is integrated marketing. If there is, I'm just going to throw this out there, the easiest thing in the world. What is integrated marketing, right? There's probably 10,000 articles that say what is integrated marketing.
For sure.
But I can absolutely do the research, and I can see, let's say with BuzzSumo, and I can see what are the articles that got shared the most. And then I can see with Google who ranks the best. And I can kind of get a picture. If I go read all those articles and I go see all of the things that those people do, I can get a clear picture of, you know what, if we wanted to rank well for what is integrated marketing, we have to do a better job than all of these people. And so that might be us doing an infographic, a white paper, some really cool graphics to share throughout the article, maybe a video, maybe a podcast, and build kind of the super page that basically is better than all of the rest. And so that's what I work on with clients is I say, okay, if we want to reach that type of customer, here's the 12 topics that they're interested in. And then how are we going to write every single one of these topics? How are we going to write it better than the competition out there? So instead of building 52 articles, one a week, we're going to build 12 articles and spend, 4 or 5 times, the effort on it to build the best. And when you do that, it's amazing. You will see the rise. It'll all of a sudden, it'll go from ranking on page 4 to page 3 to page 2. People will start sharing it. And before long, you're starting to get leads off of it.
Okay, great. So what do you think the future of content marketing looks like?
Well, I do think we're going to work from backwards from instead of production, which was everybody saying write, record. I think now people are getting a lot smarter about it and saying, what's the minimum that we need to do to really be good here, and then how can we maximize that investment on those things? I think companies that really see that when they put in the effort, they get the results, are doing an incredible job right now of repurposing. So like I said, they might start out with an article, that article starts to get shared, then they add graphics to it, then they do an infographic. The infographic gets shared, so then they do a white paper. The white paper does well, so then they do a webinar, and they basically keep propelling that forward instead of just thinking about what am I going to write today. So I think the larger companies that are really doing a great job on content marketing, and even the small ones, because small ones can be a lot more agile than a big company when it comes to this stuff. But they're doing a great job at really hyper focusing and just saying, how are we going to be the best on this topic? Because that's the one that's most relevant to the people that are going to purchase our products or services. Okay.
I have a quote from you here where you mentioned that premium content is the only thing that's making a big difference. Would you define premium content as what you described before, like the really in-depth, like great resource?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't put a word count around it. I would say that there's been a lot of analysis in that, pages that are 1,200 words or above are really starting to get a lot more focus. Now, that's not because search engines go, how many words are on this page, and we're going to rank it based on that.
Yeah.
It's because people are writing more comprehensive articles, and people, if they come to your website, they don't click, but they will scroll. So you'll see huge bounce rates and exit rates on an article, most of the times. But if you write a really comprehensive article, you'll see that the time on site and the conversion starts to increase. And so that's what I mean is really just doing a high-end job. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it all yourself. People put infographics out there to share. People put videos out there to share. And you can share them on your site. It's not like stealing an image or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone might just say, hey, you can put this infographic on your article as long as you link back to us and give us credit. Well, do it, because it's gonna make your article even better. And I tell you, that's a secret that I use all the time with my clients in my own site is I rank higher a lot of times than the people that actually publish the infographic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I write a great article around it and I share a video with it and everything else, whereas they just stuck it on a page,
Right.
by itself. And so it's just think about our own. When you're Googling, what do? You put a bunch of keywords in, you see if the results are relevant, you go back, re-scramble the words, then you start clicking. You click on the first result, you go, no, that's not really what I meant. And you click back to the search engine, then you go to the second one and the third one. And the third one, you land on this incredible article and you read the entire thing. You spend 10 minutes on that page. And then maybe you sign up for a demo or download the white paper or whatever. And that's what we're seeing is that type of behavior.
Okay. So how do you get people's eyes on this kind of content? What promotion methods would you recommend?
I love social media groups. I think they're just spectacular. So industry groups, I belong to I belong to 2 podcasting groups. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I'm writing about tools about podcasting, the first thing I do is I go ask for people's, I don't just say, hey, I wrote a new post, but I'll ask people a specific question about it. I'll say, you know what, I had a question about this in this article. Do you guys have any advice or anything? And I can update the article with that. And you would be surprised that, there's thousands of people in those groups. The first thing they do is go, man, that's a great article. And they go share it. And then it spreads like wildfire. And so I love that because it's very, very relevant. The people belong to those groups because they are researching, that information, and they're probably thought leaders and everything else. And so it's a great way. Paid is another way to promote great content. So, obviously, Facebook ads and Google are great because, again, it's going to be showed to relevant people, especially if it surrounds an event or a sale or something like that. You can really hyper target, who you're trying to promote to and stuff. But I would use it for content awareness, not necessarily expecting conversion in that standpoint.
Okay. So do you prefer gated or ungated content, and why?
Oh, this is a tough one. I've used both, and I like testing. I think gated content, if you've really worked hard on a white paper or something, I think gated content does work well in some, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I see that there's just not enough interest. Maybe there's just you're not reaching the right demographic, or it's not a decision maker. It's a low cost item. If you're selling a software, and it's, $5 a download, I doubt people are going to do a gated, they're not going to put all their contact information in it. But if you're selling an enterprise software package that's $100,000 and you released a white paper on, the 12 aspects of this, software that people need to watch out for, well, then people are probably going to, go ahead and put their information in. And so I think it's just a matter of testing. You can always ungate it, right?
Of course.
You can always move it from one place to the next. And so I like testing with gated and then falling back if it's not really doing well.
Okay. So do you believe that SEO is the main differentiator between good and bad content, and that ranking is all that should matter when you're making content, or no? It's important, but what do you think? Like, what else matters?
This is going to get me into trouble again. A lot of people in the industry call me an SEO consultant, and I almost mutter under my breath when they do that. It's not an insult to SEO consultants. There's a lot of good consultants out there that do SEO.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem with SEO is when you say search engine optimization, you're not saying searcher optimization. You're basically looking at algorithms and seeing, how you can maybe game or the algorithms and rank better. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to attract people. I'll give you one scenario. People talk about, posting content in 2 different places, duplicate content. So you write an incredible industry article and you share it on your blog, and then you ask your SEO person, hey, is it okay if I publish that on LinkedIn? An SEO person would invariably say, absolutely not, don't do that. The 2 pages are going to compete with one another, and Google is going to rank one or the other. You're going to get people sharing both, and you're going to split the authority of them, everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what if 0 leads came from posting it on your website and 10 leads came from sharing it on LinkedIn? Why isn't that a good thing? And so a lot of times I argue with SEO people where I say, no, I totally understand the reasoning for you to want it to rank better. But the fact is our audience is over here, and it's just as good for us to promote this article over here as it is to promote it on our site. Our site doesn't have authority, and the whole network of people that we want to reach is over here in social media. And so that's where I try to always say, what is someone looking for? What's motivating this person? And it's not algorithms,
Okay, yeah.
It's seeking information and everything. And so that's not saying that SEO is bad. I think SEO is absolutely incredible because people are putting in relevant searches and finding the right information and downloading it. And it's a really clean path to a conversion. But what I'm saying is that when you get into the nitty-gritty of SEO and people start arguing these nuances of the algorithm versus customer behavior, go with customer behavior every time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in your opinion, how important are backlinks for Google?
Well, I think that Google has done an incredible job over the last few years at really making backlinks intelligent. In the old days, I could put out what was called the list meme. So we could put out something that said, here's my top 10 people to follow in social media. And if everybody published that on their blog, guess what? We all rose in rank, and it was this way to totally game the system and outrank everybody. And Google got really smart about it. And they started saying, you know what? Let's look at a domain and let's look to see what kind of authority they have in this space. So if I'm writing about, roofing and gutters, and that's shared on a site that's talking about, bathroom remodeling, then don't weigh that backlink as well. But if it's shared on a site that is talking about roofs or gutters or home services and maintenance and stuff like that, then give it a lift. And so I think Google's really gotten intelligent about it. And I think that SEO, again, backlinkers, I hate that term because if your motivation is to backlink, then you're looking at an algorithm. If your motivation is to reach the right people, then it's a different motivation because you're going to look at what kind of audience that publication has, and you're going to say, hey, those are the people that we want to reach. They're talking about those same topics. That's the audience. I would love to write an article and get some kind of link back from them on there, but it's because of the audience. It's not because of the weighted backlink. And so I really, again, if you're not taking search behavior and consumer behavior or business behavior into consideration, I hate backlinking. I would much rather have, link earning. And a friend of mine, Tom Broadbeck, said that term to me, and I love that.
Yeah.
So link earning instead is EngageBay does an incredible infographic on maybe integrated marketing, and everybody shares it and everybody links to it. Why? Not because you asked them to, because you did such a great job.
Yeah.
And the relevant audience linked. And so that's the best way to skyrocket in rank, is to just do that fantastic content that everybody shares.
Okay. So where do you see Google going in the future? Like, what do you think it's going to look like in the next couple of years?
Well, I have concerns. Tim Berners-Lee was one of the inventors of the internet, and he calls it a walled garden, and that's where Facebook tries to keep you in Facebook all day. They don't want you to exit Facebook, and we're starting to see that same thing slip in with Google. And so if you notice when you do a Google search, the first thing is, if it's a local search, you see the map pack, and you see basically their directory, which is almost forcing companies to do some kind of paid advertising to get those people converting. And you're starting to see it with quotes and music and definitions and everything else. And so now Google is basically trying to be the destination and show all the information in there, and then we're adding voice search on top of it.
Yeah.
So what it's doing is separating companies from search engines and the ability to organically, kind of get that. And I really think that that's scary. I really think that it's scary for consumers and businesses, because then we're just getting to pay for performance, and it's going to be whoever has the most money wins. And that kind of eliminates the whole reason for the web, which is a democratization, that I can build an article and Microsoft can build an article, and we're competing with each other. But if Google switches that around and says, hey, you know what, we're going to have this premium content that we're going to display to try to keep people in Google and in the search engine and not go to your site, well, now I got to pay them in order to get seen. And that's a terrible place to be. So I'm hoping and praying that we don't go that direction, but it looks like they're doing more and more there.
Wow. Okay. That's, something to look out for. So do you think that influencer marketing and social media work better for B2B businesses or B2C businesses, and why?
Oh, that's another good one. I think, again, it depends on the actual influence there. I have seen consumers do really well. It's amazing. I mean, isn't it, you could correct me. I don't buy lipstick very often, but like Kim Kardashian is, if she mentions, she's basically built an empire off of this, right? And and her sister, who's her sister?
Oh, there's a whole bunch,
yeah,
whole family,
and they've done it through influence. They have built, I think, isn't her youngest sister like a billionaire now or something?
Yeah.
And that was all done through her influence with her followers and stuff. So I got to give it to her that she's done an incredible job at managing her brand tightly, the quality, the experience, everything else. B2B, where I see it, is that companies that don't necessarily have known thought leaders within the company, so they produce incredible content, they have a fantastic product or service, but they don't have a following. They haven't built that kind of community of trust. They tend to do really good with influencers, because once an influencer sees that product and shares it, then they get the recognition and they latch onto the trust that influencer has. And so I think it depends how your company is built. We had, when I was back in the day at ExactTarget, which is Salesforce and Marketing Cloud now, but back in those days we had Scott Dorsey and Chris Baggett and another guy, Joel Book, that everybody in the email industry knew those guys. And they spoke at every major event. So they didn't have to go out and get external influencers. They had them right within their company. But other companies that I've worked with don't have that. And so we work with a company that's RPA. They do robotic process automation. They're new. They've got a great product. So we had to go out and find and meet analysts in their industry that were getting the word out to get them mentions and everything. And once those people gave them some attention, people started to see that they were trustworthy and could be looked at as an option.
Okay. I want to talk about another quote of yours. It is, true authority doesn't come from a buying audience. It comes from buying an audience. It comes from impressing it. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and it's the same thing that advertising is this kind of in your face kind of thing, right? And that's not to say it doesn't work, but you're not necessarily building trust and authority over time, right? You're just basically plastering the person and saying, here's our product. That person goes and they make a purchase decision and buy it. But when you're building trust over time, and I see this a lot, especially in B2B, I have a couple of guys that I work with that do enterprise sales. They've built relationships with these companies over a decade, and they've sold them tens of products, like not one product. They've been with different companies and sold the same company, multiple products over time. And so they did that through impressing them, by building trust with them, a personal relationship with them, understanding what kind of problems that they had. And so that trust, that's the hardest thing that we're trying to overcome on the web, is trust. Is, I can go to your website and I can see your company, but should I trust your company? Do you really say what you're doing? Whereas when I meet someone in person, or I talk to them over the phone over the course of months, or they come in and talk to us about the problems that we're having, now all of a sudden I'm not buying them. I'm actually building a rapport with them and a relationship with over time, that then ultimately leads to that conversion. And so I see the hardcore companies that sell hard tend to have retention problems. So they get people on board, and then those people don't stick. I think one company that was pretty open about it was HubSpot, that they were doing some really aggressive sales back in the day, and then their retention actually lagged, and so they had a real problem with that. And so it's why, I'm sure EngageBay, I'm sure you guys measure customer experience and retention.
Yeah.
And so you don't just go sell it to anybody. You try to sell it to the people that really need the product and are going to be successful with the product, because then ultimately, they're going to stick with you, and your return on investment for marketing is going to be great. And so that's what I mean by that is, if you guys just went out and plastered ads everywhere all day and got tons of people to sign up for your software, you would cause customer service to have headaches all day. People would be killing their contracts all day. You'd wind up just, being in so much pain. And so instead, by you guys doing things like this, you're providing a value to your audience. You're bringing me in and speaking to your audience. People now go, hey, that's really cool that they did that. And I think I want to work with people like this. And that's what you really want. That's when you hit gold.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. All right, so lately there's been a lot of speculation around email marketing and email servers in terms of inbox placement and deliverability. What do you think the future of email marketing looks like?
Oh, I hate email marketings. I get, let's see, as we speak, I have 13,685 unread emails in my
inbox. Just a few, yeah.
And so I use all of this software to basically optimize and figure out what emails should rise to the top and everything else. The problem is that the industry hasn't moved forward in 25 years. We're using the same exact technology that we did, 25 years ago. And part of the problem with deliverability is there's a huge disconnect between the email senders and then the email receivers. The email receivers are the ISPs, so like Google. And so Gmail has no idea whether you opted in for a newsletter or not. And so Gmail has to build its own authority engine to see basically, hey, can I trust these guys? Can I put it in the inbox? And lo and behold, you said free in your subject line, and they threw you in the junk box. And even though someone absolutely opted into your email and they wanted your offer, Gmail made the decision to shove you in the junk folder. And it makes me cringe. And what I wish would happen in this industry is I wish that Google and Microsoft and all of the ISPs would build permission engines. That maybe if I opt into your newsletter at EngageBay, it says, well, sign in with Google and say that you authorize that newsletter.
Yeah.
And now people can't spam. Gmail would know, Google would know that I said yes. And instead we have this disconnected model. And so it causes a headache with all of my clients. And so we use tools. 250OK is a great inbox placement, tool where if you're a large sender, you can see how many you're doing, but it's still a puzzle. Sometimes I put my newsletter out every week, and sometimes I get 100% inbox placement. And then the next week I get 16%. And I have no idea why, Microsoft, Office 365 threw me in the junk folder. I have no idea. They don't tell me, they don't report it to me, they don't say anything. And so it's becoming more important for companies to have, feedback loops built in and inbox monitoring and DMARC set up, SPF. If you don't know what those are, deliverability folks will help you out with that. But it's if you're a sender, I guarantee that if you're not doing any of those things, at least half your emails are going to a junk filter, and you don't even realize it. You don't even know.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, so switching gears, what do you wish all businesses knew about marketing technology?
That it's not the cure. That it's basically, I always tell people that what I really like to do with, I'm vendor agnostic. I don't say this is, I even said it earlier. I said Agorapulse, I like that. That was the one that I gravitated to, and here's why. But that does not mean it's the right platform for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I really love doing with people is mapping out their processes and then trying to find the solutions that map to their processes, because it's a lot easier to change technology than it is to change people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people tend to fall into their, I just like using Excel, and
Mm-hmm.
so, okay, well, maybe there's a tool that we can use that integrates with Excel and makes this a little bit easier. And so I tell people that let's map out the process, let's figure out where the inefficiencies are, and then let's go look at vendors and see what tools that they have and try to fit them in right. And again, that's when you're successful. I've seen too many people I was at a customer in Washington, DC, that had spent $1.5 million on their marketing technology stack. So
Oh, wow.
a huge investment, and they had left another MarkTech stack because it failed. And they were, these people were practically in tears because it was so, they went to the analyst right top quadrant and they thought it was the safe move to go get this product, and internally they didn't have the staff to support it, they didn't have the training, they didn't have the budget, they didn't have anything. And so they spent all their money on a license on something that they really had a hard time implementing, and cost them a ton more money to try to fit in. And so that's a backwards way of looking at technology. What I really do with people is look at their processes, see where their hangups are, where people are spending the most time, and then go find a solution that fixes those gaps. And then that's when you see a return on investment. That's when things get easier. That's when your internal employees are happy, which you always want, and then you can expand and integrate and build, on that.
Okay, so what do you think the future of MarkTech looks like?
I think that more and more companies are really starting to open up their platforms to integration. And I really love that. I love the fact that I can use, WordPress as my content management system, and Shopify as my e-commerce platform, and EngageBay, for my sales and service needs, and I can mix and match and get it all working together. And I love that. And that's what I watch out for with companies a lot. When I start to see that walled garden that we talked about before, I start to get scared. When someone doesn't integrate with anything, they don't have an API, application programming interface, they don't have connectors to connect out to different services, I kind of go, uh-oh, I'm not sure that you want to use this, because once you start using this, you're stuck. And then you don't have that flexibility and agility to move to other platforms and get, maybe a chat bot that integrates, and get maybe, an AI engine on the back of it and everything else. And you're totally 100% dependent on this company, and that's not a good place to be.
Yeah. So speaking of, just kind of getting yourself off the ground, you've helped a lot of startups, ourselves included. And what inspires you to do this?
It's not money. Helping startups is not a lucrative job. I love the speed and agility of small companies, and so once middle management starts taking over in a company, I start to get really frustrated. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing, right? Once you start to grow to a certain size, you have to have management to start to define processes and quality control and everything else. It's just not my bag. I love small businesses where they are scraping every penny together. They're gambling, their future. People are out, they're getting paid in shares and not salaries, which doesn't pay their bills. And I love that. I just love that hunger and excitement that they want to change the world. And so I tend to just gravitate towards those companies because I just love that it's the Wild West,
Yeah.
And nowadays the cost of entry is so low, that, if you're a person sitting at home, you could watch YouTube and figure out how to start a business and start a technology business, and maybe white label a platform somewhere, and, put a, you start an Etsy shop tomorrow, right? And start selling, your crafts and goods. And so that's what I love, is that the low barrier to entry, everybody can try to do a startup, and see what happens. And most of them fail, and that's okay. You tried, and you learned something from it.
Yeah. Okay, so my last question is this. What advice would you have for people starting off a career in digital marketing?
Network. Digital marketing is moving so fast and so wide that you just can't possibly keep up. If I talked about the number of frameworks out there for building websites and apps, there's dozens of them, and there's another one every single day. And if I talked about content management systems and all of these technologies, it just moves so fast. But what happens is if you really work on your network and you really try to get good friends that are knowledgeable within your industry and diverse industries, diverse people, really try to build that network of go-tos, right? We all help each other is what winds up happening. And so people call me and they say, you know what, I had a guy the other day, he wanted help with WordPress and WordPress development. Well, I don't have time. I do WordPress development for my clients, but I don't have time. But I have 2 other resources. And I said, well, if you're looking for a marketing spin, these guys are really good. But if you're looking for a development integration, these guys are good. And so having that network is just worth gold. The other side of it is having that network is how you're going to find your best job in the industry. If you're a new digital marketer and all you're doing is sitting at home submitting resumes, you're going to get the most terrible cubicle job that you ever despised in your life. But if you go to events, startup and entrepreneur events and technology events or industry events, if you're in pharmaceuticals and go to those events and everything else, you're going to start meeting people and networking with people, and people are going to start figuring out that they like you, they understand what you're good at, what you're bad at, and they'll start going, you know what, this job opening happened over here that you might be interested in. And that's when I see magic. I never see magic happening from job submissions, but I see tons of networking. And I have young people that come to me all the time, especially graduates, and they tell me, I want to get into the startup space here in Indy. Who should I go talk to next? Who should I see? And I always introduce them to somebody. I always try to put them down that path. And so that's your network. Is if you invest in your network, it will pay off dividends for you in the future.
Okay, well, Doug, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you. I feel like there is a lot of great information here that our audience is going to love. So thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Absolutely.
And have a wonderful day. Thank you again.
You bet.
All right, bye.